I always thought this was a failed film. Constantine was ahead of its time. It's one of those rare works that made Rotten Tomatoes publicly admit it had been wrong in its initial judgment when the film was first released.
If we look at the broader context of superhero films in 2005, Constantine definitely stood out like a misfit, both visually and thematically. At the time, we were seeing the dominance of the X-Men franchise from the early 2000s, followed by the massive success of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy and culminating in Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins.
But Constantine took a very different path. It was released as a movie strictly for adults. The directorial debut of Francis Lawrence was harshly criticized by both audiences and critics for changing both the look and feel of the character, John Constantine. In the original comics, Constantine was a blonde British man, but in the film, he was portrayed by Keanu Reeves, a dark-haired American.
The depiction of hell in Constantine was also highly unconventional. Instead of a fiery, pitch-black abyss that most people imagine, the film presented a parallel world filled with buildings and streets, evoking a strange yet familiar feeling.
The script of Constantine broke away completely from the typical formula of superhero films. John Constantine wasn't portrayed as a savior of the world, but rather as a man on a journey of redemption. At the beginning of the film, he is introduced as a jaded, cynical individual who had once committed an unforgivable sin, according to Catholic doctrine. He fights demons not for any noble cause, but simply in hopes that his soul can be redeemed and gain entry to heaven. This is the archetype we now know as the anti-hero. However, in the world of Constantine, salvation doesn't come from the number of good deeds you've done or blind faith in religion. It only comes when a person dares to act selflessly for others. That's why, at the film's climax, Constantine chooses to sacrifice himself to save another person's soul. It is only in that moment, when he stops thinking of himself, that his soul is truly cleansed. And when he is given a second chance at life at the end of the film, instead of lighting a cigarette like he usually does, he starts chewing gum, a symbolic gesture that he truly wants to change.
The first lesson the film delivers is this: sometimes the greatest reward we can receive is simply another chance to live a better life. Moreover, Constantine places viewers in a world where angels and demons coexist and directly interfere with human fate. Yet it constantly reminds us that no force, whether angelic or demonic, holds the absolute truth. These titles alone don't define moral character. From this, the film offers a second lesson. It is not belief, but action that defines who we truly are, who is good and who is evil. Director Francis Lawrence didn't assign the power to judge right from wrong to any supernatural being. Instead, he placed that responsibility entirely in the hands of humanity. We are the ones who must choose, take responsibility, and save ourselves. This is a bold and radical perspective, completely at odds with most superhero films and traditional religious doctrine. It's precisely because of this bravery, this decision to empower human choice, that the film was coldly received by a large portion of critics when it was first released. It's a shame that Constantine was too far ahead of its time and never got to benefit from the shifts in pop culture that have happened since.